Yes, it is true. The Black Ace Hockey Podcast is back in action. My name is Blaine Adams. I'm right here as always with your co-host Nick Jenks Jenkins. What's going on, man?
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, and just as I was prepared to talk today about how this mountain of snow that we got last week was all melted off, but we're currently getting buried again. So I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut. But
yeah, that's the one. Other
than that,
what's the one bad thing about living on a lake, dude? You just get pelted every year with snow. I won't forget the time. It was like Christmas break my junior year, I think. It was like that one Christmas where they had 10 feet up in Erie, and it was just absolutely brutal. Like, come back off of Christmas break, cars buried, have to like pay somebody roaming around in the street with a truck and a plow to plow our driveway and get everybody's cars out. So yeah, it's definitely not fun. I wouldn't recommend if you're weak to live in Erie. You have to be just a different breed if you want to live up there, or anywhere like a Buffalo, Rochester. I'd say even Michigan, along those like lakes over there. Like, screw that, man. I'm not even trying to do that. But yeah, man, it's been a while. It's been about a week and change since last hockey news update. So anything going on with you that everybody needs to be aware of?
Man, I'm not that important. There's not a whole lot going on with me that the people need to be aware of. I'm getting over a little bit of a cold here.
Gotcha.
I swear to God I had pneumonia or something. But
you gotta gas the Dayquil. Pre-Dayquil. It ruins your body, but it saves you in the long run.
That was the advice you gave me, and I did not take that advice, and I guarantee you I'd be healthy by now. Back to having my body as a temple if I did that.
Yeah. I mean, it keeps it away just long enough for you to finish the bottle and then go get another one. So it's like, right at the sweet spot.
Yeah. Yeah, but a little bit of high school hockey news. We went down for a tournament this past weekend, Jamestown. I guess that would be up, but whatever. We actually played in a pretty high skill showcase tournament in Jamestown, and we played pretty good the first two games. I think the third game we were a little banged up and down a couple of guys. Everybody was just gassed. It wasn't the third game wasn't pretty at all. But it's like a couple bounces go your way, you could win those games, and it was just a couple of those games. And against competition that, at least by tier of high school hockey, they were AAA teams, and we're in the single A division. Yeah. So we competed. So that's a good sign, at least. Yeah. We've got some more important league games coming up here. Every point counts. I mean, we're on the bubble. We can make the playoffs. We just got to start winning some games here. And so far so good. We're hoping to be a playoff contender this year.
Yeah, this is a nice part of the year when everybody's kind of dialed in. There's less running around and trying to kill each other, and more of like trying to make skilled plays and think things through and regroups and actual like hockey play, because just like you said, every point matters, and you're not trying to take a dumb penalty if you don't have to. So yeah, it's nice. I think the one bad part is frustrations and emotions get the best of you this time of year. So I think as somebody that is always on the ice, I'm just more aware of it now, and it's just like frustrations of hockey always boil over. I get it, I understand it. That's kind of comes with the territory nowadays, but especially like around the holiday seasons, I just want to jump in and ask you, like, what is the best gift, not that you've received, but as for a hockey player to get when Santa comes down the chimney?
As a hockey player, for me, it was always a new stick, because you knew it was going to be like you lose sound there or something.
No, you're good. I just had to turn my mic down because it was freaking loud.
Am I screaming in your ear? Sorry about that. It's for me, it's always a stick. You're getting the latest and greatest, and the way that you hide it is you stick it behind the Christmas tree, or you stick it up the middle of the tree, or whatever you got to do.
Right.
I just remember, I think back to one Christmas. It's like going through all my presents. I'm like, I don't know, 10, 11, something like that.
Sure.
Going through all my presents. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. They're like, my parents are like, you missed one. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, look behind the tree. And I
Classic
go, look
hiding
behind
spot.
the tree. I was like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, it's the first place I look now. Just go straight for the good stuff behind the tree. Or it's like, oh, did you forget something in your car? Let me go get it. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So,
yeah,
it's got to be the stick. Stick's easy because, like, it's like one of those things you can't wrap to hide. Like, you can't wrap a stick. You just wrap it. So it's definitely something fun. I think skates. I've gotten skates, I think, once at Christmas, and those are pretty exciting stuff. So, really, any equipment like that, like big stuff, is always fun and exciting. And especially if you live outside, you could get the ODR rolling and get some reps in. So, it's definitely fun. But jumping into some NHL hockey news stuff this past week, really the main highlight is the Four Nations rosters have been released. Pretty much, if nobody is aware, if you are not aware and have been living under a rock, the Four Nations is essentially replacing the All-Star game, I think, for next year. So these teams were built basically 4 teams, right? The Sweden, Finland, U.S., Canada, Russia. Obviously, we all know about Russia, but I want to get your thoughts on if there's any upsets or if there's any surprises to some of these rosters that you think are important to highlight.
Yeah, I mean, I look at these rosters, and it's a lot of the players you would expect to be on the teams, right? The obvious ones, like you go through Canada and you're like, okay, Crosby's there, McKinnon's there, McDavid's there.
Right.
Some of the other ones that are not really all that surprising are guys like Marner and like Brandon Hagel, because their coach is the Tampa Bay coach.
Yeah.
And Sam Reinhart, who is apparently one of the best goal scorers in the NHL after leaving Buffalo. Weird how that happens.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's but it's like, honestly, I would rather get drafted to Buffalo so that I know I'm that good. Like, yes, I know I'm good. I'm just on a shit team.
Just trade me away, please.
Yeah, just trade me.
Then my career can begin.
I'm never signing an 8x8 there. I'll promise you that.
I think that instead of going through every player on all these teams, that would take forever. Let's just jump to some of the surprises. I think for me, the big surprise on Canada was probably Seth Jarvis. He's really young and he's been pretty good.
But I guess like over Bedard is kind of.
That's where I was thinking, right? Like, if you want to go just based on like brand power and get your big names there, like Bedard's probably there over Jarvis. I even heard, I was scrolling through the Twitter and there were even some people speculating that based on how Celebrini started his career, that they would at least talk about him being a contender to make the team. I said, I don't know about that. Yeah. He's only 18 years old still. It's really not his time yet. I thought Bedard would be the pick over him for sure. But that's my big surprise, I think, for Canada. I think for the U.S., nobody really jumps off the page as a surprise that they made it. But the one guy who I am surprised that didn't make it is John Carlson, Washington Capitals defenseman. Because he has been, Ovechkin's out right now and he's still holding it down. He's just been their number one defenseman for the better part of, what are we going on, 15 years here or whatever that he's been playing in the NHL. So consistent, runs their power play. Obviously, with the power the U.S. has here, they wouldn't need him to run the power play for this tournament. big body. I just thought for sure that he was locked in on this spot for the U.S. team.
Well, I look at the defenseman, and it just looks like it's loaded with talent. It's
Yeah.
not really heavy hitting, and it's not really like your true defenseman. It's more like
Mm-hmm.
7 offensive defensemen, and I think it that's kind of where the U.S. needs to be. Like I think we always try to like build a team to play defense because Canada's so good. Like, hey, Canada's gonna bully us, so like let's build
Yeah.
defensemen that are actually like defensemen, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Whitney was on a USA team. Like the guy doesn't play offense ever. Um, so like I think this year they're like, hey, let's try something different.
Yeah.
Let's build a team to actually compete against Canada instead of building a team to defend against Canada. I think that's kind of the
Oh
mindset.
yeah.
Like at least that's like when I go through the names, like that's what I think. Like Adam
I
Fox is
agree.
shorter than me. Quinn Hughes is shorter than me. Zach Wierenski is 2 inches taller than me. Like I don't. There's no like crazy big men. So that's kind of where
Mm-hmm.
I see
I
it.
agree with you 100%. I think they probably looked at this and they said, "What's our identity going to be?" And
Yeah.
it's going to be, we're just going to attack you. We're not going to be the big slow puck controlling team. We are going to rush the puck. We're going to move it quickly, and we've
Yeah.
got very offensive minded players on this team. And I think there's some forwards on the U.S. team who can play well defensively. I'm looking at like Brock Nelson's a good two-way player who's probably going to be their fourth line center. Trocheck can play a good two-way game. JT Miller does a good job playing a two-way game.
JT
So
Daddy.
JT, your boy, made the team.
Right. I mean, he signed lifetime.
He's a lifetime signed to Team Miller Daddy.
Yep.
So yeah, I think a lot of it for the most part is guys you'd expect to make these teams, and it makes sense. I think if I look through these rosters, just doing a quick judgment call, I think there's no doubt Canada's the most talented in terms of skaters, but look at the U.S.'s goalies: Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, Jeremy Swayman. I mean, you've got probably the best trio of goalies ever assembled right there.
Yep.
That it's going to be tough to get pucks in
And
the net
Canada's
against
goalies
the
are not
U.S.
strong right now.
No,
Not
no.
strong.
Biddington's very up and down. Aiden Hill's been pretty consistent over the last couple of years once he found his footing. And Sam Montembeau has been around for a couple of years now, but he's having a really good season, which is probably why he made the team.
Yeah.
But he's not the most consistent guy either. So I think the U.S., if they run that run and gun offense, they're going to bury some goals, and you only need 3 or 4 goals, and you're gonna beat Canada because they're not going to get pucks past Hellebuck or Ottinger.
Right. Before you said Sam's last name, I was like, how the heck do you say that? I'm like, Motem Bolet? Like, I don't know. Like, why do the
Very
French?
French.
Why do the French add like LTs and then just make them silent? Like, why even
It,
have that?
it's all style points.
Like,
It's all
it's
style
just
points.
so stupid. Whatever. I think one more person I just want to point out that I
Yeah.
maybe Finland's kind of lacking as far as NHL goes.
Hmm.
As far as like heavy talent, I'm seeing Capo Caco on here. I I don't know how this man can make any team right now. Um,
Crapo Caco.
I it's hard for me to even think to have him on this team. That's why like I I say like Finland might be lacking in talent, or they're just like trying to maybe Kako's really popular over in Finland. I don't know, but that's like one other name that I think kind of surprising that he's on there. Um, but outside of that, I think we touched on a lot of the players that have expressed some grievances. I know Bedard had a nice comment about like nothing's given to you. You just got to work harder for next year to try to make the team next year. And I think that's the way you got to look at it. Like, if you weren't picked for these and you're a younger talent, like, that's just fuel for the fire, right? Like,
yeah.
You get passed up in the draft, fuel for the fire. Like, that's all this stuff is. And glad Bedard kind of took it on the chin and just kind of kept it moving. So it was good to see from him at least. But yeah, that's the Four Nations. I think it's a cool thing that they're going to be doing. I hope they continue it to just like get rid of the All-Star game, because it truly doesn't matter to these guys anymore. I know it's a fan fest mainly, but
yeah,
these guys just want to break. Like, they want a week-long just break, and I don't know how heavy the Four Nations are going to be. Maybe there's going to be hitting. It doesn't look like there's going to be fighting for sure, unless Crosby wants to get in the mix, but there's no fighters, I think, on both teams, so it's going to be an interesting watch. Yeah. And especially, you know, fighting is a main staple around Christmas holiday dinner, and, you know, two teams that were not happy with each other at the dinner table were the Ottawa 67s and the Barrie Colts, Jenks. I think it's the Black Aces curse now. We just talked about them, or talked about the Teddy Toss, and they had their own Teddy Toss, and they're out there fighting each other and getting in scraps while the Teddy Bears are raining down. What the heck's up with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I
just talked about how good spirits everybody is.
Yeah, but you've got to like. Who's the home team in that scenario? I didn't really look at it.
I didn't look at it.
But if you're, it doesn't matter either way. Let's just say you're the road team, okay, right. And you get scored on first, and you're like you're pissed off. Maybe it's your fault, okay? Maybe you blew a coverage or something. Your guy got loose. Bing bang, backdoor tap in. It's your fault. Coach is screaming at you. And a teddy bear comes over the boards and hits you right in the head. Sure. Oh my God, you're just gonna lose it, and that's probably what sets you off. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's all fun and games, but when games are like, if you're in the heat of the moment and the games matter, like there's already some teams who are fighting for every point because you're way behind in the standings, right, and you can find yourself in a hole that you can't climb out of. Blah blah blah. If you're in the heat of the moment and that teddy bear comes over the boards and hits you in the head or something, or crosses right in front of you, it's probably just going to set you off, and right. It's going to lead to something. So, yes, we love the teddy bear toss. Yes, everybody loves the teddy bear toss, but you get your wires crossed, and you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, this is actually insane. Like, the fact that we said teddy bear toss, everybody gets in a good mood, and Christmas time, it's good spirits, and then these boys are just out there chucking knucks at each other in a league that is trying to get rid of fighting. So I wonder if they're ever gonna like adopt since like the NIL stuff and NCAA and CHL are kind of trying to get closer together. Do you think we'll ever see CHL just be like, hey, let's go full cages or full bubbles? Like, do you think? But like those players are coming into the cage, like they're going from the CHL into the NCAA where they can't wear a visor anymore. So why get used to something that you're just gonna have to switch back to?
Yeah, I just don't see it, man. It's been this way for so long.
I mean, if you played in the CHL currently,
yes,
and you were like mid-tier, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that the NCAA is the path, would you wear a visor just so you could have to go back to a full bubble or full cage?
No, hold on. The CHL is not the problem here. It's the NCAA that's the problem. You're telling sometimes 25-year-old men.
Jenks. College kids.
Yeah. So if you're let's go through this quickly. If you play your whole junior career out, okay, you're eligible through your age 20 year. Okay? Then you've got NCAA eligibility. So you're going to college as a 20 or 21-year-old. Okay, let's say you're a senior in college, okay? You've grinded it out. You're a senior in college. You're 24, 25 years. You're going to tell me
25 in college?
if
What are we doing?
if you played all your years of junior, you could potentially be 25 years old as a senior.
You're insane.
Anyways, let me finish my point. You're going to tell a 20-year-old, I don't care, 22-year-old, we'll just say that. You're going to tell a 22-year-old that they're not allowed to wear a visor after they were just done wearing a visor from age 16 to 20.
Right.
But now, now it's a problem.
Who pays for dental? Is it their parents or is it the NCAA? Is it the school or is it the program?
You're right. That's the problem. It's covered by the school's insurance, and their insurance would go up if they made them take the cages off. But there's a lot of legal ways around this. You just give them the option. All they got to do is sign on the dotted line that says, if I get my teeth bashed in, you're not responsible for it.
I just don't. I don't know. I don't know if that would ever work.
I think the NCAA is behind the times, and I think they need to find a way to get visors on their players.
That's tough.
That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. All right. I mean,
you've struck a nerve.
I know how kids like that operate, right? Like if, say, Connor Bedard was in the NCAA, or like look at Celebrini, you're not going to tell me that some 24-year-old monster mammoth from Yugoslavia, Nigeria comes over and was like, all my mission on this team is to shut down that guy. And Connor Bedard has a visor. I'm taking my stick, and it's going right through that man's nose. Broken nose. That's the sort of thing. And then, like, you look at the whole McDavid breaking his hand right before the draft. Like, stuff like that will happen more and more, I think, in the NCAA, because kids, they don't think at the professional level. They're just thinking, like, this is college. I'm here to, party a little bit, maybe get a scholarship or get tagged onto an AHL, ECHL team. So I don't know. I think it's a good discussion because I can see both sides. The liability aspect would be pretty insane, and I don't know who would take the brunt of that. But another thing that comes down the pipe this past week was a MLB player, Jenks, signed a contract for $753 million. Messi signed for, I think, no, not Messi, Mbappe or whatever his name is, signed for $1 billion in Saudi Arabia.
$1 billion? With a B?
Billion for 1 year.
Oh my.
$1 billion for a year. Yes.
Are you kidding me?
He signed that for a while ago. What would you do with $753 million? Like, think about this. The top 10 players to ever exist in NHL hockey, combined their salaries, do not equal $753 million.
So who's now? I'm curious. Did you have this written down when you did your research?
There's just this.
I want to know who the biggest contract in NHL history.
It's not the biggest. It was top players. Top 10 players. Like, think Crosby, Lemieux, Gretzky, Gordie Howe, Bobby Hall. Like, these guys.
Here's
Lindstrom, Kaner.
The richest contract. So here this guy, Juan Soto. Okay, he's the MLB player for context, right? He just signed a $753 million contract, and he's not even the best player.
He's not even the best.
He's not even the best player in the game. The current number one contract in the NHL. Got any guesses?
It's got to be Shesterkin now for 11.2 or whatever he signed for.
not as big as what Ovechkin signed his deal
I
for.
forgot about Ovi.
The biggest contract in NHL history, at least this was as of the start of the season. Ovechkin's contract was $124 million.
Oh my God.
That is
for how many years?
I don't remember. It was probably like a 12-year deal or something at the time. That you can't do that anymore. But at the time, I'm sure it was like a 12-year deal. That Juan Soto's contract is 6 times more expensive than that. And Ovechkin has the number 1 NHL contract in history right now. So,
and arguably will be the best goal scorer of all time. And you can't say that to Juan Soto. He's like
right.
mid good.
Juan Soto's he's a good player. That would be like giving an $100 million contract to Phil Tomasino.
Right. Yeah.
That's disrespectful. My bad, Juan.
I'm sure he's listening.
So to go, yeah, I'm sure he's the one listener we get on this podcast. To go back to your question, what would I do with $750 million? I have no clue.
Right, I
can't even imagine that a number that big. I guess I would just buy a house everywhere.
How do you hey, I want $753 million for 10
Apparently,
years.
You just have to be fairly decent at hitting a ball out of the air
and speak Spanish. I don't know. That's it.
Hola, papi.
That's really it. And like those contracts make Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, when they ask for $12 million, it's like pennies. I'm like, dude, how is this actually this different? How is MLB just a loose cannon? It makes no sense.
There's a bottomless pit because there's no salary cap.
But how does that money even accumulate?
The owners have billions and billions of dollars, and they're just like, I will pay whatever I have to pay to win. So the Mets go out and they add Juan Soto, and they just say, we will pay you $750 million to come play for us.
It's stupid. But yeah, it's pretty crazy week that has gone on within contract styles. And one contract, especially that I think everybody saw coming, that got excommunicated from the Rangers, was Jacob Trouba going to the Ducks for essentially a bag of McDonald's and a 4th-round pick. I'm curious because I don't get why you name this man captain and then say see you later 3 years into it. I thought, to me, captain's like a sacred thing. You are not naming a captain unless you know that guy's staying there forever.
Yeah, something must have changed. I mean, I don't know about. I think there were a lot of people scratching their heads when they did name him captain. They're like, he's not even the longest tenured player on the team.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe he's a good voice in the room, and maybe he's a good leader.
He's a terrible leader on the ice. Guy just literally tries to murder people.
He goes out there and he says, how many heads can I make pop off in one game?
Right.
It's very clear that the Rangers are having a bad year. They've had high expectations. They've been very up and down. Trouba's been having a bad year. Zibanejad's having a really bad year. Kreider's having a bad year. We've talked about this a little bit already, so we won't go into detail. But this is a huge shakeup for them. I mean, obviously trading your number 1 defense. Well, Fox is probably their best defenseman. But trading your captain and a staple on your defense is signaling a big culture shift is coming. And they've even said, there's been some media that's reported that even like Kreider, who's been with the Rangers as long as I can remember, is available for trade too.
Penalty kill specialist.
Penalty kill shorthanded goal specialist, Chris Kreider, who I just traded in fantasy, by the way. So hopefully he keeps having.
That's foreshadowing. I don't know what is.
He's going to come out and go back-to-back hat tricks.
Right.
It's I'm not sure how the deal all worked out. It just feels like Anaheim wouldn't have been my first guess for teams that were interested in him. They've already got Gudas, who sort of fills the same role, I think.
Whatever role that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. The trade doesn't make sense to me. I understand New York's wanting to mix it up a little bit and just get a culture shift going, but yeah, the destination and the deal and everything, I don't know. It is what it is. They got some return for him. He's out of there. It's probably positives if you're a Rangers fan right now.
Yeah, they probably wanted to get rid of a contract too.
Yeah.
To help with Shesterkins. I don't know the cap hit. Don't quote me on it, but it's probably tight in their accounting system right now. So, getting him off for a bag of McDonald's is really cheap for a New York team. And another trade that I think we kind of predicted, or at least we alluded to when we were talking about just teams that are having a bad start in general. The Avs and Sharks practically swapped goalies. The Avs getting rid of Alexander Georgiev, I think is Georgiev, whatever you want to say.
That was pretty good.
For Mackenzie Blackwood and a few draft picks come along with that.
Yeah.
Practically a straight up trade as you can get. I know the Sharks got a little extra incentive to take on Georgiev, but what is your thoughts on that?
My first thought is that the trade could not have come at a better time for me personally, because okay. I had dealt Georgiev to CJ 24 hours before this trade happened. Okay. So CJ is not happy with me. Because I can clearly tell the future, and I said I had insider information, and I said I'm getting this guy out of it.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, Siege. The Avs have to try something new in net, man. I was not surprised to see this trade. Georgiev had a just completely miserable start to the season. They benched him for a little while. He came back and actually played okay, and then he's been pretty bad again. And I think they just got to the point where they said, hey, Mackenzie Blackwood is playing pretty good. He's somebody we think we like, and we're gonna ship Georgie out of town here and just do a goalie swap. So their goalie room is all new within the last 2 weeks. They've got Mackenzie Blackwood, and they traded for Scott Wedgwood out of Nashville. So the new goalie room, hopefully that fixes it. I don't know that that's going to be the answer. I think they probably have to address their defensive systems a little bit, because they tried 4 different goalies this year and none of them had success. So,
I think the goalie position right now is tough. We're not seeing a lot of high-end talent come into the NHL and just be studs anymore. I think you're barely going to see that ever again, like we saw it within the last early 2000s and 2010 era. So I think just being patient with some of these guys. Blackwood is good. I think he got stuck in New Jersey and kind of got crippled because they were no good at the time. So it's same with Wedgwood. Wasn't Wedgwood there as well?
Or he might have been Coyotes. He might have been there at one point. Wedgwood was most recently with Dallas for a couple of years.
Okay. Aiden Hill was with the Yotes.
Yes, Aiden Hill was a Yote.
And then he moved to a good team and became really good. Yep. So stuff like that can happen all the time. I think being patient with some of these goalies is very crucial to keep 100%. In mind. A few other trade rumors that I just wanted to highlight. Some wind has been swirling in the Canadian region around Brady Tkachuk. Now I know the Ottawa Senators love him, and they would hate to see him go. But my guy has been on a rebuild every year since he's got there. I don't know how much you can take, how much more you could take, being in that kind of mindset before you're like, hey, I need to go to a team that like wants to win. And it has been said that the Maple Leafs are in on the action. But
Wow.
what would you give up for Brady Tkachuk to come on and help your elevate that team? Like they cleared Alex Nylander. They put him on waivers just this, couple days ago. So are they preparing to maybe shuffle some stuff around and be like, hey, Ottawa, maybe retain 90% of his salary?
Yeah, Ottawa so first of all, Ottawa's not gonna get into retaining salary. They're not in a position to do that.
Especially to Toronto.
Oh my god. First of all, I know this is fun to speculate, but
right.
I don't ever think Ottawa and Toronto would make a trade ever. I just don't think that would ever work out. The Toronto GM probably calls the Ottawa GM and he just screens him and says, "Yeah, I'm not picking up the phone."
Right. Yeah.
Brady Tkachuk, if he does get traded, I think it's a mistake for the Senators. It's going to be a haul. If he goes somewhere, I don't care if it's going to be Toronto. I don't care if it's going to be the Rangers. I've heard the Rangers are in on him. But if he goes somewhere, you're talking picks and prospects and probably roster players. Like, This is going to be a big deal. And he's, I don't know what his cap hit is, but I bet you it's relatively high. Like, you're going to have to make room for him. Right. There's not going to be a team that can just, I want to say he's making somewhere around $8 million or something per year.
Well, he's a name now. Like, he's like, people like him because he's him now. He's not just like some random fourth liner.
Yeah, 100%. So it's gonna be dramatic if he does go somewhere, and that would be the biggest trade of the year by far. I just don't know if the Senators are going to want to do that. I think they need to continue to be patient a little bit longer. I know it's completely different if Tkachuk takes it out of their hands and he's like, "No, I'm out of here. Like, trade me.
Yeah,
just let's go."
Well, they brought in Olmark, right, to try to help out. So it's, I mean, I think they're the new Jersey Devils, right? Like, there's tons and tons of just young talent that is just begging to have, like, to figure it out, like some sort of cohesiveness. I would love to see it because, just having a team full of young guys, just something about having the oldest team in the league in Pittsburgh is very disheartening. So seeing something like that come together for them would be very nice. So hopefully they figure it out. Another trade rumor going around the league is Dylan Larkin has requested a trade. Now, we don't know how true that is. Stuff like this comes out all the time. You think of like the whole agent situation with Boston and Swayman. Like, oh, we haven't heard that before. Like, that's a new number. Like, so things like this can go out there to see if there's any feelers. Like, Dylan Larkin's available. Oops. And all of a sudden, there's like 9 million calls. I said this before. Larkin, he's good. He's on the Four Nations team. He's a little older. I think if a team needs that veteran status, and as in like, maybe an old soul in the locker room now, well, let's get him in there. But he hasn't really been to the playoffs before. He hasn't really done anything except be really, really good for Detroit. So do you see him going anywhere or landing anywhere, or is this just speculation?
I think this is even more speculation than the Brady Tkachuk thing. I think if he wanted to really go somewhere, he would have done so. I'm pretty sure he just signed an 8-year contract, like maybe last offseason. And he committed to being there, and he's the captain of the team. I know it's probably pretty frustrating for him to be on this middling Detroit team for so long. Yeah. I mean, they haven't been bad enough to get a high pick, but they haven't made the playoffs in how many years? So you're kind of just stuck in no man's land right now. But yeah, I don't know how much traction there is to that one. I know the Red Wings are struggling again this year, and at some point, Larkin's probably going to say, "Hey, if we're not going to turn this thing around, I do want out because I do want to play in the playoffs and I do want to win a Stanley Cup." So that's another one that could be a big time deal. I mean, he's not going to come cheap. Wouldn't be as big a package as Brady Tkachuk, but he's not going to come cheap if somebody does want to deal for him.
Like I wonder if teams like actually strategize like, hey, let's collect some of these older guys like Kaner, Vladdy, and like DeBrincat's getting up there now too. So and then come what is that, trade deadline day, and teams are trying to pick up a rental. Like Detroit has 9. They have 9 rental players. So it's maybe they look at it that way, like, hey, let's get some picks in at the end of the year and then really rebuild. Or like maybe let's talk to Larkin and be like, hey, we're gonna get Kaner, Tarasenko, DeBrincat out of there, but we're gonna hopefully we get hauls for them. So we'll see. I think things will become more interesting the closer we get to like April or like even March. So I think that's when things will start to pop off. Last topic for today. I wanted to get your thoughts around Christmas tournaments. This time of year, there's a lot of moving, a lot of shaking. People are going to Florida. People are going to Hawaii. People are going to Alaska, Serbia, Syria, all these countries, right? So I want your thoughts on just like what your vibe was around Christmas tournaments. Like some people like them, some people hate them because they disrupt that whole like little break you get. So what are your thoughts?
I'll say I kind of got 2 different perspectives on it. Okay. I'll say if I think about it back like as a kid when I was playing in these tournaments, I loved them. Everybody was off school. You got together with your friends. Like a lot of times you're going somewhere cool for the tournament.
Right.
You're in a hotel with your friends over the holidays. Everybody's off school. You got nothing to worry about. Just go play hockey. I loved it as a kid. Now as a grumpy old adult, I hate it.
Okay.
I want to enjoy my time off. This time of year, I really do try to prioritize spending time with friends and family because I think that's important. And it's time where typically everybody is off work, so you do get to see people that it's hard to coordinate schedules sometimes. So it really is, if you think about it from just a pure schedule standpoint, it really is an inconvenience. Because depending on when the tournament is, most of them are going to be like the weekend before Christmas or like in between that week between Christmas and New Year's. That's a busy freaking time, man.
Yeah.
Especially like if you're a family man or you've got like your kids on the team, you're talking about you've got to coordinate. Now you've got to plan for a hockey tournament in between all the regular holiday stuff. Hey, we're going to Pittsburgh to see grandma and grandpa, and then we got to hurry back to go to this hockey tournament. It just really disrupts things. So the holiday tournaments, while they can be fun, and I'm sure the kids love them, I think they're probably best just held off until another time.
They have to be so hectic for parents. I'm the same thing. Like I remember going to like Michigan and Buffalo and like between games it was close to a lake, so like where the hotel was, they had like an outdoor tournament set up. So like when the kids got back to the hotel, you would go out there and play like 3-on-3 with like your team and being like a little side tournament. So like I think trying to make the Christmas tournament fun rather than serious, I think is my aspect of it. Because there's so many serious tournaments throughout the year. And people are obsessed with their My Hockey ranking that I think like just taking a break from that around this time would be nice. But that's me right now. I know if I was 16, I'd be like, I want this to count during my hockey ranking. Like we just beat the best team in a 3-on-3. That's definitely counting. So, like shit like that I think is cool. But yeah, it's a weird time to try to plan 700 games in Pittsburgh for sure. That's got to be no fun. College news, Jenks. You got any news for the people today?
Not too much movement in college hockey this week. Everything's pretty status quo. We do continue to see players, the CHL NCAA agreement now. We do continue to see some of these players committing to college teams who are playing in the CHL. I saw another guy who just committed to Bowling Green. Last week there was a player who I can't remember who he was playing for. He was playing in like the BCHL, who moved over into the OHL, who was already committed to play college. I think at Michigan actually. So there's a lot of moving around going on.
I didn't even think about like them committing to college and then playing like 2 years in juniors.
Yep. So the Otters actually several weeks ago now, they brought a kid in from a junior B team in Canada who was committed to play college, because he's like, well, now it doesn't matter, so I'm just gonna jump into the OHL, and
maybe we'll see the CHL move up in like skill level too.
Oh, 100%. I think you're going to see some of these players who were on the fence about it or wanted to play in college. Like, think of the recent guys. Like, Owen Power didn't play in the OHL, but he could have.
Seth Jarvis.
Seth Jarvis played in the WHL, I think.
Right, but he couldn't play in the... Aren't they part of the CHL? Yeah.
Yeah, he couldn't play in college.
Couldn't play in college, so, like, maybe he could have, He's a stud.
Like Fantilli's a recent one who went. Right. He's a Canada boy who went to the USHL and then played college because he couldn't play in the OHL. It was against the rules. So I think it's just going to be good for the CHL and it's going to be good for the NCAA. The talent's just going to get better all around. So we're going to keep paying attention to all the movement that's going on. I think as we get past the holiday season and stuff, and the teams start playing their conference games, their interconference games schedules start. There's going to be a lot of movement going on, and it'll be interesting. I'm kind of following. Obviously, I'm a Penn State guy, so I'm following the Big Ten pretty closely. And Jesus, Minnesota looks scary right now.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting. I just say if you like college hockey, start watching because the games are going to get even better as we keep going.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch it. Well, in the summer, we'll have to keep track of everything and then do like a podcast show just of like all the trades or all the commits and things like that. So stay tuned for those things. Writing on the wall pick, Jenks. Best segment of the pod. We're doing December 14th. If anybody wants to pay attention. I'm going to go first this time.
Do it.
I'm looking at a team that is down in the dumps. Some would say they're worse than the Penguins. And then they're playing another team that's super down in the dumps. And some would say that they're worse than the Penguins. I would say the Penguins are the worst team to ever exist. They tear my heart out every time they play a good team. And then they put it back in when they play shit teams. So I'm looking at the Ducks versus Blue Jackets. Now, I know people will say, oh, that's the worst game known to man. The Blue Jackets are just no good this year, and the Ducks are in the same exact spot. The Ducks are the new Yotes. They collect old players just to get them off the payroll of the NHL. But I think Terry and Zegras are going to put on a show with Carlson, and they're going to beat the Blue Jackets by 3 goals. Ducks.
Wow.
Responsibly.
Okay.
Yep.
Not where I thought you were going to go with that, but okay. I like it.
I like to keep you guessing. Keep you on your toes, Jenks.
Yeah, you make it fun. I give you a lot of credit for that. You make it all fun. This is a This is a very simple explanation.
Okay.
Because I am now extremely biased because as the fans have heard, I've made some significant fantasy hockey trades this week.
Right. Yeah, you have.
And one of those trades is the acquisition of my stud goaltender, okay. USA Jake Ottinger. And I need him now more than ever because my goalies have been just brutal this year, and I paid a lot to get him. And sorry, Siege, but he's going to shut the Blues out on Saturday. And it's going to be a 30-save shutout. And go Stars, go. We love Jake Ottinger. Bet on those Stars, baby.
Responsibly, of course.
Responsibly, please.
All right. There's some good picks. Any last words for the people, Jenks?
Stay warm. Somebody come shovel my driveway because I'm sick of doing it. Dear God.
You need one of those ATVs with the shovel on the front and just rip out.
That's it.
Up and back.
Yep. You got it. I pay well. Come shovel my driveway, damn it.
I pay well. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube, Black Aces Hockey, and Spotify at Black Aces Hockey Podcast. I am your host, Blaine Adams. I'm right here, as always, with your co-host, Nick Jenks Jenkins. We're out of here. Later.